Yep. All right. We're here with another episode of the S.E.M podcast, joined by Caleb Spragg, all the way from Eastern Canada.
Oh, yeah.
Jack, Bryce, and Zack Hewlett again as your hosts.
All right, Pauls.
We're looking forward to this. We've had quite a few people recorded. We released our second episode yesterday, and by the time this comes out, though, we'll probably have a dozen out there. So,
yes, indeed,
it's going pretty well. If anybody listening is interested in being on the podcast, you can email us SEM podcast without any punctuation at 51spylaw.com. So we're glad you joined us tonight, Caleb.
Oh, no problem. I'm sure it'll be interesting.
It definitely will. Definitely will. So for the format, we're going to start, before the mission and how you got to Scotland, and we'll kind of skip ahead and see what you've been up to since Scotland, and then the majority of the time we'll go back and we'll just reminisce.
Yeah, sure.
About
Sounds
the time
good.
there. So start us off with how you ended up as a missionary in Scotland.
Well, let's see. I put in my papers, I want to say sometime in April of May. My birthday's in June. So this would have been 2003. And papers came. I actually had a friend over at my house who's not a member. Papers came, and my parents woke me up. It was like a Saturday morning or something. And we'd been up really late the night before. And so I came out, and I was all like, my hair was a mess, and they're taking pictures of me and stuff. And, of course, you remember you open it up, you can't help but skip down to see where you're going, and then you start reading, right? So, yeah, it's in Scotland, and my friend had questions. He was like, so did you ask to go there? And no, just at the time, I think there was 330 missions that I could have gone to. And so I just let him know. I said, that's basically where the Lord says you're going is where you're going. And so he thought that was pretty wild that I could have ended up virtually anywhere on the planet. That's basically how I got my call. There was obviously stuff I had to do to, get ready to go. So my bishop had asked me to make sure I read the whole Book of Mormon before I go and stuff like that. But pretty standard stuff as far as getting ready, I guess, that everybody does.
Had you always planned on serving a mission?
Had I always planned on serving a mission? Probably right up until about the time I was a teenager. And then when I was a teenager, it was more like it was at that point I felt, well, I better go. Because I know that, you're going to talk to people from all over, right, of us that serve there. And I certainly live in a part of the world where there is not a lot of members. There's about 120,000 people in the city and surrounding area where I live. There's another smaller town that, I don't know, probably has, 10,000 people in it that have a ward, which covers part of the population in my city. But between, maybe 130,000 people, there might be 200 to 250 active members, right? So, when I was a teenager, for the most part, my friends were not in the church. And so, not to say that they tried to tell me not to go. That was certainly never a factor, but just kind of like being in a place where I wasn't around members all the time. It was kind of like, I could have probably been like, yeah, I'm not going to go, because I knew a lot of guys that didn't. So a lot of guys that I had grown up at the church with, they didn't end up serving a mission. But I knew that my dad had gone, and, he had a lot of good things to say about his mission. And so I was like, yeah, I'll go. I'm sure I can handle it. So I went.
Cool. That's great. And when did you matriculate into the mission?
Let me think. It would have been, I want to say October 1st.
Yeah, beginning of October in 2003.
Yeah, so I'm pretty confident it was October 1st, because I had from where I live about 7 hours north of Boston, so about an hour across the border, and so I had to fly from where I lived to Toronto which is about an hour and a little bit flight. And then I had to fly from there to Chicago. And I met everyone there, and I believe that was on September 30th. And then we had to fly across the Atlantic on a red eye that was 8+ hours. And then I arrived in the Manchester airport sometime early in the morning. And I had already made some good friends by that point. Some guys that I stayed friends with my whole mission, like Kevin Anderson and Michael Hill, we met in the airport, and we were in the same group in the MTC and everything. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was October 1st.
Cool. Yeah, we actually talked to Michael Hill just the other day. So.
Oh, cool, awesome. I was going to name drop him, but if he already talked to you, excellent.
Yeah, he was. So you and I served around each other a lot, never as companions directly.
Yeah.
But we both served with Elder Hill. So.
Okay, that's cool.
Yep. All right. So skipping forward,
Mm-hmm.
get home from the mission.
Mm-hmm.
2 years later,
Mm-hmm.
it's about 20 years between then and now. What you
Yeah.
been up to?
Oh, nothing.
Nothing.
No, I came home. I got a job right away because my dad was like, you gotta get a job right away. You can't just take it easy. And I was like, all right, fine. So I got a job at a call center, and it was for Javalia, which is a coffee company. And so people would call up and they would order coffee machines from like magazine advertisements where it's like, call now, get your free Javalia machine. And then you know, it'd be like the old Columbia Records thing where you get a free machine, but then you got to buy coffee for a certain amount of time. Right. Anyway, that didn't last too long. It was like 2 or 3 months, and I left. I didn't get fired or anything, but I left because it was like, people would ask me like, what's your favorite flavor? And I'd be like, I don't drink coffee. And they'd be like, what? How do you work there? So anyway, I left that after about 3 months. I didn't stay in that very long. About 4 or 5 months later, I got a job doing timeshare exchange, which was essentially travel. So people would book vacations. I would help them find their room. It was an okay job, but it wasn't an awesome work environment. Again, it was a call center. There's a lot of them here where I live. It paid well. I was there for about 5 years. While I was there, I want to say about 3 years into it, of 5 years there, I met my wife. Not there. I met her through a mutual friend, which is a totally separate story. And we got married. And then they shut down our section of the call center. They opened up a new one somewhere in Utah. And so all of our jobs went there, probably because the pay was less, because like I say, the pay was pretty good there. I had also started going back to university while I was there, because I had only done about 7 courses, I think, prior to my mission. And so I went back to university while I was at that job. And basically by the time I was done there, I was just about done my undergrad for my bachelor's. And then the year after that, I commuted an hour to school to do my Bachelor of Education. That was at this point we're around 2012, I want to say, when I graduated from there. I had a son who was born just before I graduated with my second degree, and a daughter was born 2 years later. I went into supply teaching in high school. I worked nights in insurance, so I would have, my day would start at about 7 a.m. and it would be done at about 11:30 or 12. And I did that for a couple of years because I wanted my wife to stay home with the kids. Then I eventually, after 5 years of supply teaching, I got a full-time job teaching. A lot of my friends that I went to school with packed it in. They said, you know what, if we're going to supply teach the whole time, we don't want this because there's no job security. And then, I think I mentioned my daughter was born a couple years after my son. In 2018, I left the insurance job at night because when I was offered that full-time job. And now I teach a mixture of courses at a high school about 15 minutes from where I live. And in the past year, my wife and kids got a dog. It's not my dog, but they got a dog. And my wife got into real estate, Zack.
Oh,
and
yes.
she's doing quite well for herself. She hasn't been in it for a year yet, and she's moved 36 units.
That's
pretty good.
incredible.
Yeah.
I've been watching, I follow her page and she's rocking and rolling, so good for her.
Yeah, no, I'm very proud of her. She's doing very well, and so it takes a burden off of me finally. I'm not the breadwinner anymore. It's her. She's making the big money. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
So I understand when you entered the MTC, you looked like you do today, and you got chastised for not shaving before the mission.
Yeah, no, that's not true at all. I don't know. Who'd you hear that from? Phil?
Yeah.
Little bird.
So the ongoing joke was that I would shave, and my shadow or my stubble was so thick that like Chris Pattenden, I don't know if you've talked to him yet, but he needs to come on. He would often joke that I hadn't shaved that day when I go to zone conference or district meeting or whatever. So I was just like, yeah, no, I didn't. What are you gonna do, huh? I guess I was kind of known for that. I certainly shaved every day, and I had a part in my hair. Unlike now, they don't have to do that. Sometimes I cheated on that. I would shave my hair really short, and I would just shave a part in. That went over well a couple times, but that went over well a couple times. But whatever.
You're a trendsetter.
Yeah, exactly.
That's too funny.
All right. So thanks for that, catching us up. Studying education, now teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. I want to know why you're not like a YouTube millionaire, because you were totally into filmmaking and all this stuff before the mission.
I was. I had made a bunch of like little tiny short like 5-minute movies with my cousin, and just before the mission we made a movie, and we like did the whole, like, he printed off the packaging for it. We bought the DVD cases. They had all the discs done up, so they had like the image on it and all that stuff. And we sold it at the university. I was working at Blockbuster actually. They had put a copy in, when they had the previews on the TVs, like what was coming out. So they put a copy of the movie in, and they were playing it a few times while I was in Blockbuster. A bunch of funny stuff happened with that. But no, I never pursued it. I mean, when I came home, before I got married and before I went back to university for my bachelor's in English and communications, I had looked at going to Los Angeles Film School. And so I'd contacted them. I went out to BYU for I got to attend a couple classes with the film courses, and but it just never, like, it was a hobby, I guess, and I was interested in it, and I thought maybe I could go into cinematography, but it was around the same time that I met my wife, and so I just said, you know what, I've also wanted to be a teacher, and so I'm happy to do that, and so I've become increasingly introverted as I've gotten older, but at the same time, if I'm put into a group and I'm expected to perform or be my old extroverted self, it's no problem. I just like being a loner. But
I have a hard time believing that. I have a very hard time believing that.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know how to explain it. I like not being bothered about stuff. Let's put it that way. So like,
okay.
But at the same time, I love hanging out with people, right? But it's just if it's like, oh, do I make plans or do I stay at home and do nothing? That's often what I'll go for. But it's not to say that, like, if I go out to dinner with friends or have people over, like, oh yeah, no problem, I love it. But there's just a part of me that loves, not having any expectations put on me. We'll put it that way.
All right.
I think that just means you have an awesome wife that you love to hang out with, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, exactly. Good call. Yeah, thanks. When she watches this, she'll. Yeah.
All right. All right, so Scotland. Walk us
Mhm.
through where you served and who you served with.
Oh,
If
you want me to give
if
you the
can
list
recall, if you can recall,
without a
yeah.
journal?
It-
All right. So when I was
Open book test if you want.
okay,
From
no,
memory, let's go.
honestly, I have nothing here with me. I when I watched yours, you said you didn't go back and look through your journal, and I thought I'll do the same thing. I'm not going to look because ultimately, I really feel like you guys are probably going to come back and talk to us after certain things come to light in these. You'll want to get
The
so
other side of this story,
yeah, like where were you when this happened? And so I didn't look at it. I didn't look at a journal at all. And I'll see if I'm the catalyst for any of these events being brought up. We'll see how well I do. But basically, MTC. Okay, so MTC. There was Daniel Stout. There was Kevin Vertigem or Vertigem. There was Scott McAndrews. There was Mark Leonard. There was Carl Newman. I'm probably gonna say names twice, but Michael Hill. I don't know if I said Kevin Anderson yet. Robert Livingston. I'm drawing a blank on anyone else. I think there was 10 of us.
it's a pretty big
Anyway,
group.
that's who is in the MTC. And then all of us came to Scotland. So I know that in later years they would mix up the groups, so you'd have guys from different areas kind of together in the MC. But our group was just Scotland guys. So when I came out, my trainer was Elder Smith. How controversial do you want me to be on this podcast?
Well, he stole your girlfriend or something, right?
This is an
Okay,
open
good.
book.
I don't even.
Okay?
No. So here's he didn't steal my girlfriend. What happened was the single girl I was interested in, who was a member of the church, he went after her when he got home. He'd never heard of her before. Okay, so if you have him on here, I sent him a very heated letter when I found out that happened to let him know that I felt he was the scum of the earth.
Did you make a copy of the letter?
Did I make a copy of the letter? No. There's no copy. I wrote it and I sent it. I was hoping I would never hear from him again. But at the end of my mission, I sent him another letter and I said, "Look, I'm sorry I lost my cool at you." But that doesn't mean that I was liking the guy again. Don't get me wrong. But anyway, so I had him for 6 weeks. He had extended his mission so he could train me because he was also from this part of the world. Granted, he was about 4 hours away from where I live. I think he extended his mission so he would get bonus points with my sister when he got home. And so that's the credit I'm going to give him there. You're probably not going to have him on here. I would be surprised if you did, because he's really pre your guys' time, right? Like he wasn't there when you guys were there at all, because he extended just to train me. Anyway, so that was 6 weeks. When that 6 weeks was done, I was happy that it was over. He liked to run to the bus stop, and I felt that was totally unnecessary because buses came every 5 minutes. And who knows? Maybe the person you're going to teach that day is on the bus. That's not the one you're running to all the time. Anyway, so
what area were you in?
So that was Dunfermline, so just north of Edinburgh.
Yep.
And while I was there, I had Derek Cooley and Kevin Nelson were the zone leaders there. So they were in a different apartment than ours. Just a side note, every single apartment I had, and this is for all the guys who are going to listen, and all the sisters as well, of course, every single apartment I had was nice in my mission. I'm just going to rub that in right now. Because I remember, Jack, you mentioned about some of the places were dives that you saw. Not yours, per se. You were saying you kept it clean. Was that you who was saying that?
That was Zack, but...
Oh, Zack, okay.
Yeah.
But every apartment I had, like Dunfermline, my first area, it was brand new. I think they had sisters in there for 3 months before that, and they moved them out, and then I came in. Anyway, every apartment I had was wicked. I'll see if the other ones come up, because some of them were pretty cool. But anyway, so I had him 6 weeks.
Where was your apartment in Dunfermline? Because I served there. I remember going on exchange with you there when I think you were across the Firth in Edinburgh. And you came over.
Yeah,
but
okay.
We were in the apartment that back to the train tracks there. I don't know if it had changed since then.
it might have been. We were basically in I think it was 3 or 4 stories.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of the road. I remember if you cross the street, so there was a street and a median, and then the other street, because there was a roundabout near there.
Yeah.
There was a bus stop. If you took a bus stop, so like if I was, it's hard to show on the camera because everything's opposite. But anyway, basically, if I went one direction, I know that was Recite, and if I went in the other direction, I could walk and I could make it to the high street.
Yeah. You're pretty close to where we were, so I know where you're at, because there was an Asda. We were pretty close to the church. We could walk to the church from where we were at, so probably pretty close to where we were.
Yeah, I think we could walk from there. There was that. What was it? Is it Abbeville? What was the name of that neighborhood that was kind of rough?
I think you're right, Abbeville. That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Anyway, so after I had Smith, I had Elder Amos. Oh my goodness! I hope I got his name right.
Yeah,
famous Amos.
His first name's Landon. Ames. Okay. Ames. Oh my goodness. Ames.
Elder Ames. Okay.
Elder Ames. He was great. But it was hard while I was with him because he had a bad foot. He had to get like foot surgery, so we couldn't like go out. And so I went through like the Old Testament Institute manuals, like the whole thing.
Wow.
And really did a bunch of study. And I was never one to like do all the scripture memorization, but I like to really know my doctrine really well. And so I was with him for 3 months. And after I was with him for 3 months, from there I went to, let me think. From there I went to Paisley. And when I told my zone leaders I was going to Paisley, they were like, "Oh, that's rough." And I didn't know what it was because I was like, I was still new, right? I'd been out for 3 transfers. And they're like, "Yeah, it got closed down 6 months ago because the last guy who was there got mugged. Last missionary who was there." And he had him and his companion, he had a cell phone, and these guys came out and like wanted to steal it from them basically. And one of the missionaries ran away, and the other one was like fighting for his life against these 4 or 5 guys. He ended up in the hospital, and they beat him up with the shoe from the missionary who ran away because it fell off his foot.
Jeez Louise.
and before that, the area before they were there, it had been closed for like a year because there was a missionary who got stabbed getting onto a bus. So I went into this area thinking this is like the worst place I've ever been in my life, right? Anyway, so I was there. I was with Elder Jump initially, and I can't remember if I was with Jump for, I think I want to say 2 transfers. And Jump was from Kentucky, Scott Jump. And then after Scott, I won't tell any stories about Scott. He was just a good guy. We just worked. I mean, he was fairly quiet, but we got along well. And then I had Glenn Parmenter. Have you talked to him yet, by the way?
He ghosted us. Come on, Glenn.
Okay.
So he served with me for the last 5 months of both of our missions because we came out at the same time. So he will be on. He will be.
Okay. So I'm going to tell a story about him, and he's going to hate me for it because he was so embarrassed that this happened. But it was all on him. He made a choice, and I think it was good for him. What happened was, you remember how we would have our credit cards, the JP Morgan Chase cards,
yep.
And they'd give us what did they give us? Was it £100?
£100 a month. Yep.
Was that all it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure it wasn't more than that?
£3 a day, basically.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was frugal, I guess we'll say. And also, I was very fortunate. When I came into the mission, before we got the JP Morgan Chase Visa cards, they set us up with Bank of Scotland accounts. So we had our own bank accounts. So I could have money transferred into my account if I needed it. Okay.
Yep.
And if I had extra money that came to me, I'd put it in there. So I had a nice little stockpile and a bank account. That was my bank account. And I remember Elder Lemon, who worked at the mission home, I asked him, I said, "Hey, can I keep this open?" And he was like, "Yeah, as long as you make sure you close it when you leave your mission, it's okay to leave it open." I said, "All right, fair enough." So I had a bank account. So Glenn and I, we would go to the grocery store like you do, and some missionaries would buy their groceries together, and they'd split everything. We bought our groceries separate. Okay. And so I don't know if he wasn't as good with his money as me or whatever. Anyway, so we went, and at one time he didn't have enough money on his card, and I had a bunch of money on mine. So I said, "I'll pay for it. It's cool. You pay me back, or I'll get the mission to pay me back. They'll put it right into my JP Morgan Chase account, and we'll be squared." All right, fair enough. So I bought him the groceries, went back, and then like a few days later, we had to I don't know if we had to get on a bus or something, and we needed to have change. And I had change out on like my nightstand or something, or was on the table in the living room. Anyway, so he snakes that money without asking me. And I noticed that he stole it. So we're getting ready to leave, and it was like $3 or £3, right? And so we're getting ready to leave. And of course, whenever you leave, you say a prayer before you go out. And so in the prayer, I basically said, help Elder Parmenter to know that stealing is wrong, and that all he had to do was ask, and I would have been charitable to him. Something to that effect. And so the prayer was done. He was like mortified. And I was like, dude, I don't care. Like, it's £3. Who cares? And I need you to come on the bus with me. But he was so embarrassed. And I think he told me later in the mission, he was like, I really appreciate, blah, 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 how you handle it, whatever. But like, it was just funny. Anyway, so I was with Parmenter for 6 weeks.
Gosh, that's too good.
And it was really, that was great. So I'll try and move through, and then you can ask questions about other ones. So then after that, I went to Airdrie Coatbridge. I was there for 7 months. I had Farnsworth for 6 weeks. And then I had Sean Bird, who is my boy, for 3 months. And then I had another 3 months with Mark Carroll. And then that was a great area. I was there for a long time, so tons of memories there. And at that point, after that, I went to Edinburgh, and that's when I became zone leader. And I was with Kevin Anderson, and he and I had come out together, and we had a great time together. I had always felt that he was like kind of like this really straight arrow guy, which is what my trainer was like, and I really didn't like that because like I couldn't work under those conditions. Like I could do my best to see what I could do to follow mission rules, but like some of the guys, it was like church culture was bleeding in. Do you know what I mean? Like they're making up their own way of doing stuff anyway. But he wasn't like that at all. He was just a really genuinely good guy, and we had a beautiful apartment in. It was in Edinburgh. It was in a wealthy part of Edinburgh. It starts with a C. I can't remember what it was called. Anyway, we were there, and then after I was with him, I was with Michael Hill, also someone I came out with, also someone who I was friends with a good chunk of my mission. And then after that, I went to Dundee, and I was in Dundee for a few transfers. I was with Ben Buckner when I first got there, and we were zone leaders there. And then I was with Elder Rasmussen after that. And then I finished my mission in Dumfries with Elder Tovey. And that was for a single transfer. And I could only stay 5 weeks because my visa ran out right on the year mark on October 1st.
All right.
And then I went home.
And then you went home.
Yeah.
Yep. So when you went to Coatbridge, that's where I met you, because I was in Cumbernauld. I transferred into Cumbernauld. You transferred into Coatbridge, and we were both there I was there for 6 months, and you were in Coatbridge for 7.5. So,
and I can't remember if I was a district leader there or not. I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I never had anybody for you to interview, so I know we went on some exchanges and
I probably was, because I was zone leader after that, so it was very likely I was district leader first, and I was going on exchanges while I was there, at least later on in it, but can't say for sure.
Yeah, I'll bet you were, because Schmidt and I were there for 3 or 4 months together. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think it would have been because I remember I went on exchanges. I think I went on exchanges with Toby to where was it? What was it? Night something?
Knightswood,
Is that what it was called?
I think so.
Yeah, I remember I went with on exchange with him, and their apartment was just like so depressing. Like the ugliest carpet, these like
they had
awful colored,
like a 2-burner hob in the kitchen, and
like just I felt bad for guys like that. Like I seriously, I was saying about all my apartments being nice. Like when I went to Paisley, when they brought me in, it was like scary. Like there was, how the like the tenement housing would have like metal sheets over the windows when they were like ready to tear one of those down.
Yep.
So it was like that driving up, and I was like, "This is awful." I was like, "What am I going to do?" And we turn this corner, and it's a brand new apartment building. And I was just like, "Yes!" And it had a buzzer system to get in and everything. Like it was unlike the other ones, and I'm sure you guys saw it. Those old ones with like the metal in front of the windows. There wasn't even front doors on those things. You would just walk in, and everything was made of cement, and there was no security. And I would have been so paranoid living in a place like that. So, yeah, I felt bad when I went to What was it? What did you say it was? Nightville?
Knightswood.
I just remember going in that apartment, just being like, "Oh my goodness, this is not for me."
I know when Hill came, he became the district leader, and we got calls from that area like on Guy Fawkes night. They're like, "Hey, we're going to be late getting home because the windows got blown out of our bus." So
Guy Fawkes night was wild. It was wild, like just explosions everywhere. Like I don't know if they were doing homemade fireworks or what, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah. I don't think I saw many go up into the air. They all went into buildings.
Oh yeah, they were like ground level, like just explosions happening in people's backyards, basically. Yeah.
I was in Johnston my first Guy Fawkes night, and I remember we went out and knocked doors that night, which clearly was a mistake. But I remember kids running around kicking fence posts out of fences, like just random ones. They'd run down the street, kick a fence post out, chuck it on a fire, run a little bit further, kick a fence post. And then there was one part, we were on the other side of Johnston in one of like the neighboring communities, and the fire truck pulls up, and I kid you not, it was like a block of apartments. There was like a square, and there probably had to be like a really thin alleyway to get in between. In the middle, there was a fire that had to have been as big as the building. Like you could see flames coming out over the top in between these houses. And I'm like, this is insane. I cannot believe that people are just, they're going to burn the whole building down. It was unbelievable to see how they did that. It was crazy.
Somehow in Cumbernauld, I just like became immune to that stuff. I remember getting up in the middle of the night to use the restroom, and there was like blue and red flashing in the window. So I opened the window and I look out, and there's a car on fire, and the fire department's out there, and I just went back to bed. Like,
oh yeah, and I don't know if it was just like being in Scotland that it was like this. I had something happen one time in my final area that like someone was like banging on our door at like 2:00 in the morning. I don't know what it was. And Toby like lets them in. And I'm like, who is this? Why are they here in our house? And he was like, "Oh, this is a previous investigator." And I was like, "I don't care who it is. Get rid of them." Like it's the middle of the night.
It's 2:00. Oh my gosh.
So you must have moved in Dumfries too, though, because I started in Dumfries and I lived in a basement.
We weren't in a basement. No, we were above like an auto part shop. So there was this guy who owned it. He had a lovely family. He had us over for dinner. He wasn't a member, but he had this newly renovated apartment for us. And we were just above this shop. I remember in Dumfries we were not far from the Spread Eagle pub. I remember seeing that from the street before I went in.
All right.
Yeah.
The Spread Eagle.
Yeah.
That's too good.
There was some real. So, you know what? I was saying about I had all nice places. In Dundee, my apartment was sketchy the first 6 weeks I was there. And I let President Vriens know. And then it was me, like I said, it was me and in Dundee, it was me and Buckner, and then also Darren Allen and Clausen.
Clausen, yep.
They were there as well. And they needed a new apartment. And I think there was 4 of us in there. And they're like, no, we're not doing that anymore. You guys got to get your own apartments. And our house, like our apartment, no joke. Okay, it was in a little horseshoe. Okay, like this like dead end cul-de-sac, but it was like concrete buildings. There was like a club, like a nightclub, just at the end of our street, like not a block away. And there was like a strip club on the other side of the horseshoe. And so I just said,
no way to come home at night without.
Yeah, I just said, hey, President Vriens, I don't think we should be living in this area. And then I got a nice apartment. So, you know.
Nice.
I remember Clausen and Allen's apartment was like super posh. It was unbelievable. It felt like we were in a high end, like high rise in like New York City or something. It was really nice.
Yeah, I picked that out. I picked that out for them because I was zone leader, right? So I picked that one out for them. And then the one I got for myself and Rasmussen was it was nice as well. It was kind of like decorated with like some retro posters and stuff. And it was fully furnished. And it had a courtyard garden in the middle of the apartment building. And it was nice. But yeah, Clausen and Allen's was like, it was on like the top floor of this recently renovated apartment building. But it wasn't like a high flat. It was like 4 or 5 stories up or something. And it was all brand new.
Felt high to me. I'd never been in a high flat my entire mission. So I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool.
No, I remember picking that one out. It was very nice.
It was. All right. When you were a zone leader in Dundee, it was the first time that I met you. And I think the first time we met was when we met at the park to play sport on a P-Day. And
okay, yeah. I remember that now.
I'm trying to remember. All 3 of us were there, actually, because I think Jack was in...
Well, I'm going to stop you, though.
Okay.
Did you serve in Dunfermline?
Yeah, I was in Dunfermline at the time.
Was Dunfermline part of the Edinburgh zone?
No, it was part of it was part of the Dundee zone at that point because we were in I think Elder Bass was our district leader in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah.
And so we used to go over to the Kirkcaldy building for our district meetings. And we made a couple of trips up to Dundee, one which we took the long way there. Because we had a car and we had 2 sets of missionaries in Dunfermline at the time. And we went up and did the St. Andrew's tour and then came across the bridge for one of our P-Day activities up there. So that was the first time I met you. And I was just like, man, this guy's a character. We had so much fun that day. I remember we played everything from soccer to American football we just did tons of stuff. It was a day of a lot of fun. Yeah,
I actually, until you mentioned, I hadn't thought about that in a while, but I mean, there was 2 sets of elders in Dundee, and we did the get together at one of their places. Remember, we had the barbecue, and we had the water balloons and the water guns, and that was after we had done like stuff in the park. And that day, that was
the same day?
That was the same day. That zone activity, that was like without question probably the most fun for an activity that I had on my mission. That was really just a great day. It was so much fun, and there were such good people there. And it was just the perfect way of having it by having that house that had a fenced-in backyard. We had a barbecue.
That's right.
You know, we had privacy. No one was like bugging us, because we got a lot of flack over there.
Yeah,
as Jack said, like it wasn't easy being there. And I remember that day, I just kind of felt like a normal person that day. And it was great. It was just a lot of fun that day.
Yeah. My memory was, I don't know how the groups got separated. I think some of the elders may have gone early to like start cooking. Cause I remember our group was in our car and we pulled up and I was telling Jack that the windows on the front and the back of the house had been pulled open, and if there were screens, they were all taken off. And that's when the water balloon brigade started as we walked up, because it was like a total sneak attack where you guys were up there just in your perch pounding the car, and everybody was getting pelted. It was too much fun.
And the great thing about that was that we had at no point said that was going to be happening. Right. And so we were up there, we're filling up these water balloons in the bathtub or whatever. And we just started bombing people in the backyard and the front yard. As you said, we're on a perch. And I think it was Sister Kenny.
Yeah.
And Sister Heap were there. And they had bought water guns in anticipation of something like this happening. And I remember I went out, and I went out, and I went out onto the street because I thought, we've launched all the water balloons, it's over. And I'm pretty sure it was Kenny was walking towards me, and she had her hand behind her back, and I was like, why'd she get her hand behind her back? And then she just, pulls it out, and then I was like, oh, this is amazing that she had preempted this basically and gotten water guns. And and I actually think I believe there's a photograph of you and I with everybody.
Yeah.
And I believe we were dumping water on someone's head right as the group picture was being taken, or smashing water balloons over somebody's head. I'll see if I can find the picture, but I'm pretty sure we got up to some interesting stuff.
Is it that right before that?
I think so. Just give me a second here while I'm looking. Okay, so that's me in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's you right next to me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it was. So you can see Kenny's the one in the red shirt.
Right.
And then the one right next to her holding the water gun is Heap. And I'm pretty sure Heap moved over to the other side of Kenny for a photo. And that's when we squeezed the water balloons over her head when she moved. Yeah.
I think you're right, because, her hair's drenched and she is not happy. She must have washed her hair that day, dang it.
Maybe, yeah. That was a great day, though. Man, what a good day.
That was a fun day. My goodness. Very, very much so.
And I think I think the other time I was thinking of what I had stopped you earlier, and I thought that wasn't the first time. I think I came down to Dunfermline and played basketball one time with you.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And the only reason why I remember it is because it was the greatest game of basketball I ever played. I think I drained like 6 3-pointers when you were guarding me, and I had no excuse to do that whatsoever. Because you should have stopped every single one of those, but somehow I got them by you. And I've never had a game of basketball like that since. I'm horrible at basketball, but whatever reason, I was on fire that night.
That is a memory that I clearly wanted to forget. So thank you for bringing that back up.
No problem. It came back to me. It came back to me when I was watching your interview with Jack, and he mentioned about, or you guys were talking about being these tall guys playing basketball in Scotland, and I was like, oh yeah. I remember playing basketball in Dunfermline with Zack. That's right.
Was that at the indoor court or when we played outdoor?
That was the indoor court.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was the one we'd like rent out or book or whatever at the school.
Yeah. I think so. You just scratched my memory, and I can remember that the shots that you were shooting were like total rainbow archers with no business being anywhere near the hoop, and I don't think there was a net on the basket.
There might not have been.
And it was just orbs going through the hoop over and over. And I'm looking at myself going, I'm just like, who the heck is this guy?
It's never happened again. It's never happened again.
This lean guy that doesn't have a lick of muscle on his arms, and he's flinging these things like he's throwing, waste paper balls in a basket. It was unbelievable. I do remember that. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, we loved playing basketball there because at the time we were really focused on making sure that both Dom and Tim Hudson were coming to church.
Yes, okay, yeah.
And so one of the things that we did is we said, hey, I actually started doing this with Conway, and I'm grateful that Conway put up with it because, bless his heart, he's not a basketball player worth anything. But he came out, he ran around, fouled people pretty hard because that's what most English people do when they play basketball for the first time. and we had so much fun. And then eventually, I think we played 2-on-2, and then we moved over into the big gym where there was a group of other youth that were not members of the church or not affiliated. We're just like, hey, can we ball with you guys? And I felt like I was a pretty hot to do basketball player, but I definitely crossed a few kids over between the legs and immediately had a level of respect that was like, who's this American basketball god that's got handles? And I'm like, and he's just a monster. So basketball was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite things. Like Jack said, I did it in a couple other areas to success, but those are good memories. Oh man,
you're lucky. Most of my areas, the basketball courts were covered in grass, and there was no playing.
Oh man, yeah, I sacrificed a few skinned knees playing outdoors once in a while. There was one at the school, I kid you not, where the court was like this. I don't know who said, hey, we could put a basketball court on here, because you go one direction and it's an uphill drive, and the other direction you could be running and you're going twice as fast as you normally would, and the ball's bouncing not up but forward, and so you had to like oh my gosh. Had a couple of instances where I was tripped by kids who couldn't stay with me and scraped my knees and stuff, but it was so much fun. It was a lot of fun. I loved Dunfermline. Great ward, great people.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Excellent.
Just unbelievable. And you were there for how many transfers?
I was there for 3 transfers. Like I said, it was my first area. When we chat like this, I realize, how much I remember. When I'm just trying to think about stuff, it's like, oh, can I remember? But like, yeah, Dunfermline, great. There was a gentleman who was there who passed away after I'd been there. So I don't know if you ever met him. He was someone's dad. His name was Jackie.
Oh, the Watts?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I went home teaching with him a few times. He was a wonderful man. And he passed away not long afterwards. But that both the Watts, they had me over for I think it was the Watts, they had me over for Christmas dinner.
Right.
It was excellent. And the Vriens.
Oh yeah,
they had us over every Sunday.
Sunday dinner at Tony's house, and I can't remember his second wife's name because his first wife had passed away, Paul's mom.
Yeah,
but those were unbelievable. It was a lot of fun.
I have a really good story that I can tell about him real quick. And I'll really make it short because I often get emotional when I think of this story. But his wife had passed away.
Don't make it short. I want to hear it. Come on.
So his wife had passed away
right
just before I had arrived there. Like I'm talking, the funeral was that week.
Oh wow!
Right. And so, was his first wife's name Janice?
I think so. I'm trying. Maybe Janice is his second wife. Now that I'm thinking about it. I can't remember his wife's first wife's name.
Well, regardless, so she had passed away, and it was very shortly after I'd gotten there, and we went there for dinner. I'm pretty sure, like that Sunday, like,
wow,
didn't miss a beat, had us there, and I don't know if it was that day. It might have been a few Sundays later, and he was talking to us about how someone said to him, "Hey, Tony, why aren't you mad? Why aren't you mad at God that, your wife's dead? How can you be okay with this and, just kind of move on from it, right?" And of course, he's got his testimony. He's got an idea of, what to expect in the eternities and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But he said this thing, and he basically said, and I'm sure I'm paraphrasing, but essentially what he said was, when bad things happen, people always say, "Why me? Why does this happen to me?" Right? Like that's the thing that you hear when bad things happen to people. They, how could God do this to me? Right? If they believe in God, if not, they say the universe or bad luck or whatever they say. Right? And he just flat out, plain as day, said to us, "Why not me? This stuff is going to happen. This is part of how we live our lives. there's tragedies. People die. People get sick. And he said, why not me? I've got a testimony of the Savior's atonement, and I've got a testimony of eternal marriage, and I'm able to deal with this. I don't like dealing with it. I don't like having to go through it, but I certainly don't wish this on anybody else. So why not me? And it gave me a really good perspective on, just not going to the negative side of things, even when something awful happens, that he was able to look at that and, also to help me at that time with my testimony to say something so wonderful. But just to have that mentality after something so difficult would have happened. I'm sure most people would not be like that, but it was just a wonderful example. It's something I've never forgotten from him when he said that. And it was just, really a good insight into the type of person that he is.
No, I completely agree. He was one of those people that, because I was there like springtime of 2005. So that was my second area.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for 6 months, and yeah, every Sunday without failure, he was there. He and his new wife put meals together. Paul and Wendy were there, and it was just a really amazing experience. But like you said, like just the continual like press on mentality that he pushed to us. He was always very strong, faithful, very active in the ward and involved in so many things despite what was going on in his personal life. And just a great example. Like you said, he's an unbelievable person.
Yeah. So that's, you had mentioned about getting members on to possibly speak. I think he would be a good idea. I know Paul would. I'm sure Paul would.
Yeah.
Paul, my biggest memory of Paul isn't spiritual, but that's okay. I'm pretty sure one day when we were there for Sunday supper, Dunfermline, I think, beat Rangers in a soccer game.
Yeah.
And he was just like, this never happens.
Over the moon.
And, and he was great. Wendy was great. That whole family was wonderful, right? Like, Wendy, the funny thing about her, she didn't realize she developed a Scottish accent.
Right. No, she's like, I'm from Oregon. You're like, yeah, but you don't sound like it.
No, like we would say to her, like one of the first times we were there, we're like, say squirrel, Wendy. And she's like, squirrel. And I'm like, no, that's not an Oregon accent. That's Scotland. She's like, no, I don't have an accent. It's squirrel. And I was just like, well, okay, well, you don't hear it, but everyone else does.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, she was amazing. Yeah, and I had a few opportunities, not many, but because Daryl Watson was in the stake presidency at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, but being in their home when their kids were young and now seeing them all grown up and married is just, it's kind of surreal. Time doesn't stop when you leave an area. It just keeps on trudging forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I love that ward. Did you have the opportunity to teach the Hargreaves?
I'm really horrible with names.
So John and Liz Hargreaves, they lived in Kelty,
mm-hmm.
and they had the daughter that was kind of our age is Anne Marie, and then they had an older son, John. So they called him Wee John because Dad's John.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had another sister, Kelly, that was in between Anne Marie and the youngest daughter's Megan. And we had an opportunity to teach her as she was progressing. I think she turned maybe 11 or 12, and she got baptized while we were there by her dad, which was awesome. But I didn't know if you had an opportunity to spend time there.
As you're describing them, I'm pretty sure they were in the zone leaders section of Dunfermline when I was there.
Oh, really?
And I think, if I'm thinking of the right guy, John Hargreaves, he was like, he was almost like someone who you'd see in like a rural country part of the United States, but he lived in Scotland. Is that the right guy?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure he told me about like
really
noodling a fish one time.
Really gross, really thick goatee.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about now. Yep.
And
I never taught them.
Man. No, they're awesome people. I feel bad. I was recollecting as we've been going through these podcasts on experiences, and there was like I'm trying to remember. We used to go to like the hall in Kelty or Cowdenbeath, one of the two, and we used to go there once a week. And they had a group of people, these older people that played bingo. And I don't know if you ever did that activity, but it was like it was a service activity. So we were there to help, like, pick up drinks, and I don't know how it came about. But the funniest thing ever, and you'll get a kick out of this, is all the missionaries that had come through before me, they had a portion at the end of bingo where they would have people do karaoke, but
Okay.
none of the missionaries offered the service of singing. And I was like, I'll sing, because my mom, bless her heart, was a karaoke fiend when I was a kid. Like, she was really too big into it, like cassette tapes, and then adopted to CDs. And I was like, sure, karaoke is my thing. And then when they were like, do you sing country music? And I was like, why? And they're like, because nobody knows country music like Americans. And and so I got stuck singing like Garth Brooks and gosh, all the other classics and I was like, okay, I can deal with this, because it's like listening to music for a good reason, And it was just too much fun, and I remembered that, so I was curious if that was something that you had participated in, but
No,
clearly not.
bingo
I'm
hall.
special.
No.
We had,
No.
and the craziest thing is, you walk in, and I kid you not, if you can imagine it, close your eyes. It's a hall. Everybody's there with their bingo cards and their stamps, and I kid you not, everybody is smoking. It was it was like walking into a poker hall, and I was like thinking to myself, I don't know if this is the healthiest place for me to be right now, but I'm gonna go sing my heart out. So
It's like it was like going in Brian's apartment in Dunfermline.
yes, that's exactly it. Oh my gosh.
What did he call you, by the way? What did he call you? Because all of us had different names than our actual names. So what did he call you?
Oh man, I'm trying to remember. Remind me Brian's last name.
Oh my goodness. I can't remember.
This is the handicap guy, right?
Yes. Yeah. So he would call me Elder Splat.
He was the reason why we started going to the hall.
I figured it was tied to him somehow.
Yeah, because it was like special needs people that were there hanging out, playing bingos, and
okay.
and he was one of the servers with us, so he wanted to help the missionaries. But I remember very succinctly, the SpongeBob SquarePants movie came out, and he had to watch it with us. He would not watch it with anyone else but the missionaries. And so he had us over to his apartment, and I'm sitting there, and he was so kind, bless his heart, trying to feed us. And he had crackers and little biscuits and things he wanted to share with us. And I'm sitting there going, okay, there's so many other things I could be doing right now, but I'm going to do this for Brian. Yeah. And so we watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, and I'm trying to recollect on what he used to call me, because I had so many people that just call me Big Yin on like a principal thing, you're the Big Yin, and so I don't remember off the top of my head, but man,
yeah, because he had so like I said, I was Elder Splat, and then Elder Crowshank was Elder Crotch Shot. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And I think those are the two I remember the most. One, mine obviously, but his, because it was just so ridiculous. And did he used to sing Yellow Polka Dot Bikini all the time?
Yeah. Oh yes.
Man.
Absolutely. That was relentless. His go-to.
Oh
my gosh. I had completely forgotten about Brian until you brought that up. Oh my goodness.
We barely got out of Dunfermline here.
I know. I'm sorry. We're literally spinning in the mud. There's just so many good things in Dunfermline. Sorry, Jack. Are you still there?
I'm here.
No, but like you said, Caleb, it's like when we sit down in these conversations, it's amazing how everything just floods back. Like one person remembers one thing and another person remembers another, and we married the two, and it's so fun to chat about all these different things that we've experienced together. So anyway, carry on. Dunfermline is great. We'd love to have anybody that's from the ward there come on, and so we'll cross that bridge as we get there.
Sounds good.
So, Caleb, tell us about the Vrienses.
Vrienses.
Yeah. How memory, President, Sister Vriens.
Well, President Vriens, I guess I'll start with him because I spent, far more time with President Vriens than I did Sister Vriens. So President Vriens is, whenever I think of President Vriens, I always think of Cornelius Bill from Vinegar Hill. Never took a bath, probably never will, which was a small child's drawing that he had, I'm assuming from one of his grandchildren, that he had on the wall of his mission office. And I always thought that was funny. One, because I love the name Cornelius. It's a hilarious name to me. And just the fact that the rhyme was that he never took a bath and probably never will. But I mean, honestly, seriously though, when I think of him, he's just a great guy. You mentioned about he was very empowering. How much do you want to stick to the 1 hour schedule here?
We can blow through it. If you've got time, we've got time.
Okay.
Our conversation with Hill went way over the hour, so
did
you
it?
can.
Okay.
Yeah, he set the precedence.
Okay, so I mean, I'll keep going. There's so many things we talk about, but for President Vriens, for the most part, he and I got along very well together, and I had a lot of respect for him. I think he had a decent amount of respect for me. I always worked in the mission. He didn't have to get the zone leaders of the APs to be like, oh, Elder Spragg, he's not tracting, he's not proselytizing, he's not street. There was never any problem with that. I did struggle with some of the mission rules specifically, mostly around music. And I think Jack probably remembers that because I think he came over to my place for exchanges one time. And I think I put on some regular music when we were cleaning. I don't know if he remembers or not, but I'm pretty sure it was you who was there when I was in Coatbridge.
There's a good chance.
Okay. Anyway, so I sometimes struggle with the mission rules, and he knew that. I mean, he was aware because people would talk, right? There was the guys who, they just love to let them know if someone wasn't being just perfect. And so I was like, whatever, that's, it's who I am. But at the same time, like I said, I'd always proselytize. I was always working, and I wasn't doing anything that was like against the commandments or anything. I was just, I struggled with some of my music choices, and never anything awful. Like it was, I'd want to listen to stuff that was, normal music, but it wasn't horrible. Anyway, so for my first year in the mission, it was probably more of a struggle than my second year. And that's when I became like district leader and zone leader and stuff. And right around the halfway point, and this is a story I'll share with him because I know almost all stories are going to be positive about him. And when I think of him, I have a very positive memory of him. I don't have negative memories of him, but this was just a thing that happened, and we came to blows over something. And I just like how he handled it after the fact. What happened was, and these are guys, man, if you get these guys on, I'll be shocked. So there was David Martinez and Zack Brown. Okay. They were, I think, in an area together. And this was when I was in Coatbridge. We had our 2-story apartment. So we had 2 floors. I have great stories about that. I'm not going to tell those right now. But they called me one day and they were like, yeah, we're going to come and see you. And they were from ages away. Like they were not close. They weren't in the same zone. Right. And so like, yeah, we're going to come and see you. Okay, whatever. I didn't put much stock into it because I thought, you're ages away. when am I going to see it, whatever. And they're like, oh, we'll be there tonight. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. Anyway, so like that night, I'm talking like midnight, they show up in my apartment. And a member had driven them to my place. And I think President Vriens had caught wind of this happening, that this was going to happen. Anyway, so I'm like half awake when they show up, right? Like I'm waking up basically. And they show up and I'm like, oh my goodness, so like what's happening? Why you guys, you're actually here. What's going on? And I can't remember why it was, some weird reason. Anyway, so President Vriens calls me on the phone and he was like livid. He was so mad. And basically he was like threatening to send me home over this. And so you know how we'd write those letters to him every week, right?
Yep.
And so I wrote a letter to him and I gave him an earful. And I said, look, I know I'm more valuable to you than the way you talk to me on the phone. Don't make me feel like, I shouldn't be here. And you're telling me you're going to send me home over these other guys showing up at my place. I didn't invite them. I didn't ask for them to come. I hadn't set this whole thing up. And I don't think he had realized that. I think he had thought that it was like this big thing to like plan to have this big hangout with these guys. And anyway, I don't know how often you guys get letters back from him, but he wrote me a letter back. And in the letter he wrote back, he apologized. And he said, yeah, I was wrong. I shouldn't have got upset at you. I'd heard some other stuff, and I was led to believe that you had orchestrated this or whatever. And even though we came to blows, it was really good of him as a leader to recognize when he'd done the wrong thing. I had to bring it to his attention, of course, but if I didn't, no one else was going to. And it was good. And I don't know if I've directly used that when I parent my kids, but I try that with my children. Like if I do something that I shouldn't do, and one of my kids calls me out on that, I say, you know what? You're right. I shouldn't have done that thing. I'll try to be better. And so even though we came to blows over that, and I was really mad at him for probably a week or two, we were able to iron it out. And like I said, I only have positive thoughts when I think of the guy, but it was an interesting thing that probably a lot of missionaries didn't see him get mad. I don't think. They probably saw him get urgent, like when we were having zone conference talking about the amount of baptisms, amount of new converts, all that stuff, but never mad. That was one time he got mad, but there was a second time as well. There was a big group of us that got in trouble over something, and kind of the same scenario. But no, it was just really good the way he handled it. In the end, I really appreciated it. Great guy. Sister Vriens. What can I say about Sister Vriens? I mean, she's always concerned about our health and the cleanliness of our apartments, but I never had a problem with that. Like I said, I had nice apartments, so we just kept them clean. We didn't I don't know who these guys were who had just like these must have been apartments that have been in the mission for like decades. These ones that were awful, because like the ones I went to that were new, we just kept them nice. It wasn't hard, man. You got your P-Day.
Yeah.
There's nothing to really do, so you do your vacuuming and your sweeping and general cleanup and keep things nice. And like you had mentioned about people dropping in for some surprise inspections. I had that happen a few times. I don't know if it was always for the cleanliness of my apartment, but I had people drop in, and I never had an issue. I never had an issue with that. But Sister Vriens, I feel like I'm a kinder person than I was on my mission. I would do impressions of President Vriens and Sister Vriens to other missionaries.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
So I would sometimes call missionaries, and like block my number, and I'd be like, elders, and then I can't remember what did he used to say, Jack? What was the thing he would say when he would like greet us? He had a greeting.
I don't remember the President Vriens one so much as I remember the Sister Vriens impressions. Actually,
Okay. So
No.
so the President Vriens, it was just something like, "Elders, how you doing?" Like that. He would always
yeah,
right. And so I haven't done it in 2 decades, but I sounded a decent amount like him. And Sister Vriens, I think Sister Vriens just at the time I didn't know she probably had anxiety. She had a hard time looking at people in the eyes, right?
hmm
And so when we go into interviews with her, it was always, "Elders, you need to keep your rooms clean." And she would close her eyes. And I was just like, as a 19-year-old kid, I was just like, what the frig is she? Why is she closing her eyes? Uh, and it was probably just that she had anxiety. She's talking to all these people, and a lot of them, if you think about a mission, especially when you come in as a new mission presidency, because I think they started not long before I got there. They had started their mission.
Yeah.
And I think it was just that she was just anxious. But I always remember whenever I went with me, she always close her eyes and raise her eyebrows. And so when I would meet up with missionaries, I'd pretend I was Sister Vriens, or I'd pretend I was President Vriens, and either tell them to clean up their apartment, or
there
tell
was
them they're getting transferred, or whatever.
there was this saying like that went around the mission, like just the, and it came from a sister in some ward, right? And it was, "Oh, thank you," and she hated that. And she hated it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Ooh, thank you. Yeah, she hated it. She grabbed me one time after I said that. You know I hate that.
Yeah.
It like startled me.
Yeah, she was like what a teacher would have been like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Like she would grab you and shake you. Do you know what I mean? To like, "Oh, don't you do?" It's like, what are you doing? Why are you grabbing me? Like, but
Message delivered.
thank you. You know what? I think those sayings, a lot of those, I feel like they came from Landon Ames and Derek Cooley. And there was another guy who was in the mission when I was new, and he was older. He was 25 or 26, and he'd been in the Marines. And there was a lot of those sayings. I can't remember his name.
I replaced him in Dumfries.
Okay.
He was serving with Elder Austin before I got there, and then Austin trained me.
Okay.
Oh man.
Yeah, but they would be like,
Charlie Cook, was it?
No, not Charlie Cook. No. This guy was Charlie Cook is
Older.
British. This guy was American.
Oh.
Yeah, but he would always. They had all these sayings. They would say like, "Elvis, I'm going to tell the sister missionaries on you," because there was some woman in a ward who thought the sister missionaries were above the elders. Like that's who the elders reported to. And there was that, and "Oh, thank you." Like I feel like that came from them as well. Like there was just this like these sayings that members had said that made their way into the missionary vernacular, and they just kind of it like spread. So it would be like
part of the mission. Culture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have to ask you this question before I forget, because it's been bugging me for nearly 20 years now. After zone conference district meetings, whatever, in Glasgow, you would go to A&W.
Yep.
And there was a song you would always put on the jukebox and air drum to. What song is it?
Oh my goodness.
You gotta help me out here.
Okay,
20 years.
I would say at that point in my life, if there was a song I was air drumming to, it was in all likelihood one of two songs. It was either "Everlong" by the Foo Fighters, or was "Stairway to Heaven" by Led Zeppelin.
Okay.
I can say that in a fair amount of confidence. It was probably one of those two songs.
It must have been Foo Fighters. But I love that.
Do you also remember that when we didn't go to A&W, we go to Pizza Hut and get the buffet, and they put corn on their pizza for some unknown reason?
Yeah.
Like, what's their problem over there? Who puts corn on pizza? Like, what a weird topping.
Yeah, we put every other vegetable. Let's throw corn on there.
Yeah, but it's just awful. Like, I like corn, but it has no place on pizza.
Yeah. I always, if it was my choice, we went to A&W, because root beer, hard to come by.
It was the only place to get it. Yeah, the root beer they had at Asda was not. It wasn't great. I mean, it was better than nothing. But the root beer at A&W was. I mean, that was the real deal, right? So.
Yep. I'd use the Asda stuff for like a root beer float homemade, but
yeah, that's fair.
yeah, that was, I don't know, maybe the best part for me of serving in the Glasgow area.
Well, there's got to
there.
be something that's good about it, because man, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was like I have. I mean, one of my favorite things that happened as far as a mission story happened in Glasgow. I think it was after Zone Conference. I was with Jeremy West, and we were outside of, the train station in Glasgow that comes onto the high street. You have to go down the escalator,
Yeah,
to get down to where the trains are. We were there, and we were talking about like what we're going to do on exchanges or whatever. I couldn't remember. I'm pretty sure he was coming to my area. I don't remember doing any exchanges in Easter House. If I did, I might have blocked them out, because I mean, that was what a bad town. Oh man,
that's a tip.
Yeah, it was. That came from that Marine, by the way. That calling stuff a tip. I'm pretty sure, because then Elder Asaria Do, Kofi, he loved that, and Amos loved, or Ames loved it as well. I keep calling him Amos. He's going to kill me if he hears this. So Landon, he used to say that too. What a tip. Anyway, so we were outside. The train station, and this guy comes up to us, and he's probably 17 or 18, and he goes, "Hey, yous," and we're like, "Yeah." He's like, "Give us a Bible," and we're like, "What?" He's like, "You got free Bibles? Give us a Bible." And we're just like, "Well, we don't hand out Bibles. We have these cards that we hand out. You can call the number and they'll mail one to you, but we don't carry them in our backpack anymore." And he looks at us, and he's dead serious, and he goes, "If you don't give us a Bible, we's gonna punish you." And he points to his buddies behind him, and there's like 4 or 5 guys about the same age, and they're hanging out on these like steps, like stone's throw away. And we're like, West and I look at each other, and I remembered about when I was in Paisley, and that I transferred in, that guy got beat up with the shoe because his companion ran away. And so I said to myself, I remember thinking, well, I can't run, because if I run, it doesn't turn out well. And so I look at West, and we look at this guy, and we go, "All right, go get your friends, come down, we'll have a fight." And he was like, "Huh?" And we were like, yeah, go get your friends, come down here and punish us. And they were like, he went and told his friends, and they got out of there. It was like, as soon as we showed them that we weren't scared of them, they were off. Like they were gone. But that's one of my absolute favorite memories, because there's so many times where people would say, like, they call us names, or I don't know about you guys, but I had names all the time. And I had people throw stuff at me. Like, I had like those big, like friggin' like 40-ounce or quarts, like empty vodka bottles thrown at me. And so when someone came in and I was with the right guy, do you know what I mean? Like, I knew that if they tried to fight us, he wasn't going to run anywhere. He would have thrown down, no problem.
Had your back.
Yeah. And so we knew we'd have each other's back if that happened. And so we just looked at each other and we're like, yeah, tell them to come down and fight us. And they left. And it was just like every time after that, whenever someone would try and challenge us, and it was always younger. Do you know what I mean? I never had someone who was like in their 50s be like, "Oh, I'm going to fight you." Like, that never happened. It was always like teenagers, right? But that was, I mean, it's one of my favorite memories, just because it was just so great that we were like, all right, fine, do it. We'd been in Glasgow for a while at that point. Like, I'd been in Paisley, and then I was in Coatbridge. I spent over a year in Glasgow. And so, like, by the end, even halfway through, man, like, okay, sure. Is that what you want to do? All right, whatever. Because, you know, like I said, if you try and run, or you'd be like, no, please. They would just get worse.
They
right?
preyed on that. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories of you was actually, we weren't together, but you gave me a phone call because there was, I think, a member of the High Council was mad that we hadn't arranged for the font to be filled in Coatbridge.
Okay.
Because we didn't have a building at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you called me and you're like, "Hey, this guy is mad because he had to baptize his daughter in cold water." And you were, I guess, supposed to fill the font. I was like, okay, thank you. And I remember that because I've used that in work. Like I noticed like, hey, my boss is really mad at one of my coworkers. I'll give him I call him up. I'm like, hey, this is a pre-call
Yeah.
warning.
Yeah, heads up.
This guy is coming.
And that it's surprising how much that helps, because like if somebody's upset, but they're going to be upset, it's like, all right, I can brace myself for what they might say, and kind of come up with well, the reason being is blah 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 blah, and at least you're not totally caught off guard, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, you shelter from the storm a little bit there. So
yeah, I think I think I had Elder Boutin with me at that point. I was in a triplicate with him for about a week, and I think it was around that time that would have happened. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but no, maybe I don't know.
Boutin came to our area for a couple of weeks, and then he must have gone to yours, and then we've got him on our list to get on the show too.
Oh yeah, he was great. He was great. Good skateboarder.
I
think.
Yeah, he was older too. Had I think he had gauges before he came out in his ears. So
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It's some of those guys like you don't realize it, because when you're a member, right, and you see missionaries who are older, you're like, oh, why weren't they out? But like those are some of the best missionaries, right? Like they because they got ready and then they went.
They're out there on purpose.
It wasn't like it wasn't like, oh, my dad told me to give me a truck if I came out, so I'm here at 17. And so guys like him and Kevin Anderson, who were they're like 24, 25 when they came out. It helped because it was good to have someone who is a peer, but also a little bit more mature and had some life experience. It didn't mean they were the best missionaries, but I don't know if I would ever have someone who I'd say was the best missionary. I don't know about you guys. You probably have your favorites, but I don't think I could pin down someone and say, you know what, they were the best missionary that I served with or served around, because there were so many different types of people that were successful, either in converting people or being the vessel by which those people became converted. But then there was also the guys who were like just good guys that were inspiring. Like, did any of you guys ever serve with like Jacob Campbell?
Nope. I served around him for a brief period of time. I don't know that I knew him well enough, and for some reason, no judgment, but he came across as an arrogant person to me. But I could have been wrong.
I don't think we're thinking of the same person.
I think we are.
Really? Okay.
Maybe.
Well,
no, you're right.
Who are you thinking of? Say it. Who's the arrogant person? Do it. Was it Bradley? I never got along with Bradley.
Not Bradley. Okay. Bradley was a pretty humble guy. I'm thinking of. It may have been Elder Brown. Zack Brown.
Oh, Brown was for sure. Brown, 100% Brown, and he wouldn't care if I said that anyway. I love him to death. We had a blast.
I only interacted with him briefly because he was in the Aberdeen zone when I was new, and I was like, this guy acts like he's too hot to trot.
Yeah. That would be him.
That
would be him. Jacob Campbell. No,
I know exactly who you're talking about. I know Elder Campbell now. He's a shorter guy. I know exactly who you're talking about. I just
served with Elder Bear. I think he was with Bear or Scanlon at some point. Anyways, so like he was a very humble guy.
Yeah.
Right. And he was always complimenting, not in like a brown nosing butt kissing type of way, right? Like he was just genuinely, he would really make you feel good about yourself. Right. And he was, I don't know what it was about him, but he I think sometimes he felt maybe he wasn't as good as some of the other missionaries. And I remember every time I think of this guy, I think he couldn't have been further from the truth. He was just such a good person. And I think like when I was that mission age, I wasn't mature enough to be like, no, you need to know, how positively you affect people around you. I don't think I ever said that to him, but he's the type of guy that if I think about like a good missionary, and I don't know how successful he was, I wasn't like asking him, how many people did you baptize? But like it was more along the lines of, I could tell he was a genuinely good person who was doing his best to be Christ-like. But there was other guys who were not like that, and that was okay too. There was the guys who were just a blast to be with, and then there was the guys who worked their butts off, and there was the guys like me who were just goofs, you know. But we worked. And then there was the lazy guys, the guys who never went out, and they're probably not on the list of best missionaries. But you know, for the most part, there's a lot of variance for what the best type of missionary is. When you think about it, when I think about it anyway.
It's part of the beauty of missionary work is it is diverse.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because people are diverse. So
yeah, and I think a lot of missionaries did have an expectation as well for like what they expected a missionary to be like, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, certainly, I would never encourage a missionary to not obey mission rules. Like that stuff that I struggled with, and I really developed a lot from that actually, coming to an understanding of why certain rules are the way they are. So like with the music one I mentioned earlier, where I used to listen to music and I'd listen to whatever I wanted. Again, it was never anything inappropriate, never anything with an inappropriate message or language or stuff like that. That's not the stuff I listened to. But in the White Handbook, and it talked about not listening to worldly music and listening to only music that's been approved by the mission president and hymns, right? And I remember after a while, coming to an understanding, for me anyway, that when I would listen to the music, it was because I was homesick or I just was having a hard time dealing with the expectations that were put on us as missionaries. And I came to understand that, for me anyway, and probably for other missionaries, one of the reasons why we had that rule was so that when those things happen, instead of turning to that music or some other worldly comfort, that you would turn to the Savior instead. And that would help you develop your relationship with Him and increase your testimony. And I found that out through, one, first, not initially obeying those rules. And then two, coming to an understanding after a while, like, why is this a rule? Because I'm not listening to anything that's harmful. So why is it a rule that we can't listen to that music? And then once I learned that, then, it changed for me. And, so it was good. I don't know how I got on that tangent, but anyway, we're here now.
Good. Yeah. Speaking of music, we were asked by Hill to verify that you would serenade people from the balcony as they came and went from Tesco's in Edinburgh.
Oh, I don't recall this specifically.
Denial.
No. I legitimately do not recall this. Our apartment did look over the Tesco, and it was like a super Tesco. It was huge. And it's very possible that he would open the windows and sing to people. I don't recall singing.
He implicated you with him, that you both had guitars. And that you
okay. I don't play the guitar anymore. I had a guitar on the mission, and I had a guitar when I got home, and I did play for a while. I don't play anymore. It's entirely possible that the windows were open and guitar music was being played and we were singing, but I don't recall like opening the window and sticking my head out and being like, "Hey, I got a song for you." Like I don't remember ever doing that. But
the way he described it was that you would sit and watch people and basically narrate their simple activities.
Oh, okay. That yes, that's not serenading them. That's providing a narration to their life. That's absolutely, I'm sure that's something we did. To me, that's really funny. Just you pretend like whatever they're saying to who they're with and all of that. Oh yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I 100% would have done that. I guarantee I did that. Like that's. I have a question for you. I'm not going to get into it because I think this is a story for another time. I'm not saying I got to end right now, but I'm not. Did he mention anything of the bag we found in the attic?
Negative.
No. Bum, bum, bum.
Yeah. We'll save that.
Jeez
We'll save that for another time.
We're gonna have to have a part 2
With both
and
of
have you and Hill on for a conversation.
Oh, it was it was the weirdest thing, man. It was so weird.
Wait, don't divulge.
It was weird. There was a bag. It was weird. Until next time.
Jeez Louise.
cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Oh, it's too funny.
That's good. We got to provide some hook to get people to come back. So
yeah,
That's right.
all right.
Were there other questions you had that you hadn't got to that I could give you succinct answers to?
Were you a
Without me
purveyor
telling
of the game of Pint Uno at any point in your mission?
What's Pint Uno?
Okay, thank you. That answers my question. Because Elder Hill told us all about his endeavors with it.
Was that something about like drinking milk?
No, they would
Pints of
play
water.
they would play Uno, and if you lost, you'd drink a pint of water.
Nah.
But okay, just want to make sure because
The games that were in my possession, the games that were in my possession were far better than Uno. And so I was actually I was the guys who knew me knew that if we had to have a sleepover because of transfers or exchanges or whatever, I had a decent supply of games. I had board games, card games. I even had a little tiny Game Boy in my possession that I paid for myself. But like, yeah, it was so like there was Risk is obviously a classic. I mean, that was one that people always wanted to play when you get together. But no, Pint Uno.
All right.
Mm-mm.
That was something that was born in the Highlands, and I think it lies in the Highlands. So I was just curious.
Okay. Yeah, no, I never had to wet myself after a game of Uno. That never happened.
Oh, well, you can listen to Elder Hill's stories on his episode. He'll tell you. My goodness. Anyway.
Yeah, I think he was up in Inverness, right, at some point?
Yeah, it was Thurso when he was up there.
Thurso, yeah, way up. And Kevin Anderson was up in Shetland. I never left the middle of the mission. Like I said, I mean, I was basically heart of Scotland almost the entire time.
Right. It's always interesting to hear everybody's story of what their track is around the mission, because I never served in the Edinburgh zone. I was everywhere else but there, which was pretty interesting to me.
I am curious, in Dumfries, did you meet, there was like some eternal investigators down there. Did you ever meet John the Baptist down there?
John the Baptist. Can't say that I met the man. No.
Okay.
He had passed long before I ever served in that area, as far as I know.
Not the John the Baptist.
No.
I honestly, when it comes to members that I remember, I do not remember people from Dumfries. I was there for 5 weeks.
This guy was not a member. He was a Baptist.
Yeah, I don't remember. even like people that we were teaching. Honestly, though, I mean, it was 5 weeks before I went home. I was probably trunky as all get out. I remember like I said, the people who owned our apartment, we did visit with them a fair bit because they were not members. But I'd be hard pressed to remember anyone else from that area.
Okay.
Yeah, but John the Baptist, no, definitely not. Like I said, there was that drunk guy who showed up at 2 a.m. that time. I can't. Other than him and the guy who owned our apartment, I can't tell you. And Dumfries, don't remember anyone.
Okay.
I could check my journal and see if there's anyone named John the Baptist, but I doubt it.
If you don't remember, then it's not worth remembering.
Okay.
One more quick question, and then we'll head towards the horizon. What was your experience in the transition from the previous teachings to Preach My Gospel?
Oh man, that old thing was awful. The old book, because one, I hated how robotic it felt, right? And my trainer, who was like a robot, I kind of associated him with the purple dragon. And so, just this real like rigidity of, okay, lesson 1, we talk about this. And then lesson 2, we talk about this. And like, as soon as they said, we're done with that, I was like, oh my goodness, thank you. Because then when I got a copy of Preach My Gospel, I read through it. I like chapter 6 of Preach My Gospel is still one of the best sources of self-reflection and improvement spiritually that you can read, other than like specific passages of scripture. It's all about Christ-like attributes.
Yeah.
And I still remember, I don't read Preach My Gospel on the regular, but like I still remember certain aspects of, like, how there'd be those little quotes, like just kind of apart from the paragraphs. And one of them was John Taylor. It was like, if you can take something as complex as the gospel and explain it so the child would understand it, then you're a good teacher. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what it said. And I just remember getting it and going through it and being like, man, this is so much better. Because I could just, if it isn't obvious for anyone who didn't know me as well from watching this podcast or listening to it, I was pretty chill, pretty easygoing guy. And I like doing things my way. And so when that came out, and it was basically like, yeah, you can teach part of this with part of that, and use the Spirit to direct you, and all the things that came with it, that kind of got away from just straight up citation, because like when you're doing that, it's hard to really listen to people. Do you know what I mean? Because you're so focused on. Yeah, you're so focused on. I gotta say, this is the next thing I gotta say. Yeah. Don't ask me questions. I gotta get to this next part. Yeah. And so when it came out, and it was basically, and I remember the lead up to it as well. Like we go to Zone Conference or whatever, and they'd be telling us about some of these changes. I just remember thinking like, yes, like it was like when they started not focusing on numbers as much. I don't know if you remember that, but like maybe it was just specific zones, but they weren't like, hey, how many hours did you track this week? It's like, who cares? Was I being lazy? No, like talk about irrelevant stuff, right? And so as we got away from that, it was way better. And obviously it's still the same. They haven't moved away from Preach My Gospel. It's been 2 decades, right? Basically, maybe a little bit shy of that. I think we're at 18 years now that's been out. But man, it was heaven sent for sure. It was just so much better than that old book. And I used to actually take those old tapes, because I had the tapes for memorizing the lessons, and the cassette tapes. If you grew up with cassette tapes, you knew that if you put a piece of tape over one part, you would record over the tapes. And so I used to take those tapes, and I had a talk boy that I bought from like a charity shop, like Macaulay Culkin has in Home Alone 2.
Yeah.
And I would send home to my friends recordings, and I would just talk instead of writing a letter. And I would take those tapes and I would cover them up, and I put a piece of tape over it. I write what it was, and I'd send that home. That's how much I like the Purple Dragon. I didn't even use those tapes. I used them for something else, but I didn't use them for what they were for, because I couldn't stand it.
I appreciate you sharing that. I've shared this on previous podcasts, and so I was part of the first group that was introduced to Preach My Gospel in the MTC. And so for me, I didn't know any of the previous methods in which lessons were taught. I just was with Preach My Gospel. And so for people like yourself who served prior to January of 2005, when I came out, I've always been curious to know how you guys transitioned and what your experience was prior to that being instituted, because it is such an amazing tool that's changed the way that we do missionary work. And I honestly feel like it was the catalyst in introducing the Come Follow Me curriculum that's in our church programs now, which we all know is a very important part of how we interact on a weekly basis. So
yeah, I'm sure there was stuff in the Purple Dragon that was about like self-improvement, but it really felt like whenever I had to crack that thing open and study from it, that I was worried about memorizing lessons. And with Preach My Gospel, it was more like becoming a better person so that you can be a better teacher. At least that's how that's how it came across to me. And I'm sure it's probably different for different people because there's lots of different chapters in there. But for me, like chapter 6 was like, oh, look, just as important as what you teach is who you are. And so I just, I really latched onto that. I was like, okay, basically the better person I can be, that can be a good way of sharing the gospel as well. It's not always what you say. Actions speak louder than words and all that. Not to say that, you can just be a good person and shy away from sharing the gospel. I'm not saying that, but certainly, the emphasis of, if you become more Christ-like, people will notice. It's certainly, I'm confident that it's done far more good for me in the long term of my life than the Purple Dragon ever did.
Yep.
I love it.
Is there anything you want to share that we didn't get to that you want to mention now?
No, I have way too much. I have way too much. Because I wouldn't say I was always getting into trouble, but I had a very unique experience. At least I think I did in being in the mission, because I felt like some of the guys I came across, I felt like they weren't being themselves, to put it bluntly. They put on this mask of I'm a missionary now, and I'm going to act a certain way. And I never did that. I did have a bit of a facade as far as how I acted, because I knew, there's the natural man and all that stuff. But I really feel like, I've got, like I said, and we've mentioned a few times in this talk, that once you start talking about stuff, man, I like I said, I barely got out of Dunfermline. There's I told you a story about Glasgow. I didn't tell you any stories about Edinburgh. I barely mentioned Dundee. I don't remember anything from Dumfries. I barely mentioned Coatbridge and Airdrie. Paisley, I mentioned the story about Parmenter and the money. He's going to kill me when he hears that, but
I appreciate that.
I do too. Glenn's gonna. That's too good.
Yeah. Hopefully you get him on before he can see me mention it, and you can just throw that on him when he's on and surprise him, and just I bet his face will just turn beet red. He'll be mortified, but it'll be great.
Oh man.
All right.
Is there anyone else or a few other people from the mission besides companions that you'd like to hear from as we continue?
Besides companions?
Sure, yeah. Your favorite people.
Did you write down the names of my people when I was listing them off earlier? My companions?
No,
Oh,
but
okay.
This is a recording. I can listen to it anytime.
That's true. Okay, not companions. Let me think. Well, for sister missionaries, Heap for sure, and Jade McGowan. I think her last name might be Wilson now.
Yeah,
she's in Australia, and we served together very early on. I think she was in was Kirkcaldy sisters area, Jack, or
I don't know.
Where were the sisters at? Do you have sisters in the Dunfermline or Dundee zone, not far from Dunfermline when you were there?
No, they were in the northern part. They might have been in either Perth or Arbroath by that point.
Okay. And so there was those two, and then there was, oh my goodness, I think her last name was Allie Spalding, I want to say. So those would be the sisters I'd want to hear from.
Okay.
And it's Sister Kenny, if you haven't spoken to her. I think you already talked to Sister Cooper.
Yep. We have, yeah.
You have, okay. For elders, well, probably my number one person to hear from, even though one of my companions would be Elder Anderson. I would love to hear just how he's doing and that stuff. Jeremy West, great. Ben Buckner, George. George. What's George's last name? I can't believe I can't remember his last name. Willis. Yes. I've got, man. Just ask if you get George on. Ask him about the time I called his girlfriend.
Oh my gosh.
George Willis would be great. Gosh. Yeah, he would be great to hear from. Like Derek Cooley, Kevin Nelson, Jeff Croshaw. What's his name? Peterson. No, Rolskov. That's his middle name.
Yeah, Christopher Roscoff Peterson.
Yes, that's it. He'd be good too. I think that's enough names for now. I'm sure there are others. I mean, there's Salvatore Aurelio, and
he's
any number
on
of other guys.
He's on our future list.
Okay,
he's scheduled actually. Yep.
Is he? Okay, good. Yeah, he's man, great guy. Horrible driver, but great guy. and
driver. He thought he was a good driver.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
And he's and you know what? If you get him on, you can let him know. I said he was really good at making noodles, and he'll lose it.
His noodles were unbelievable.
Such good noodles. Those Italians know how to make some delicious noodles.
Oh my gosh. He made one meal. We'll save it for him. My gosh. I only went on exchanges with him, but his noodles were unbelievable.
If you say noodles to him, he will not be happy. He's going to get, it's pasta. It's pasta. Right away.
We'll deliver the message. Elder Spragg said you made great noodles, and it'll be fun to see his reaction.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh man.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
No problem. It's been a blast. I knew it would be.
And we will, I'm sure, make the rounds again and get different companionships, different things, guest co-hosts, things like that. So
yeah, having companions together would be great because it would help to like really jog our memories and be like, oh yeah, that was with you. Because sometimes it all just kind of meshes together, right? And it's some of the other things it's hard to differentiate. But yeah, that'd be cool.
Yep. But once again, anybody who wants to be on, we're now publishing. So any podcast service, it's out there. We're also on YouTube, and we're just having a good time with this. So thanks.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Caleb. Have a good night, buddy.
We'll see you guys later.
See ya.